Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of the King Lincoln Show. Today I'm gonna tell you some more shitty stories about my crazy dad and my shitty childhood and shit. But first, I want to talk about Strickland versus Hamzat, which just happened the other day. Um, I'm a big Sean Strickland fan. I like Hamzat too. Like, I'm not a hater. I don't really hate on any like fighter or anything, unless they're a real dickhead. But yeah, I'm a big Strickland fan. I think he's hilarious. Like that's my kind of sense of humor. All the like out of pocket, like fucked up stuff he says. Um, I really like all that stuff. I think it's hilarious, and a lot of people don't like his style of fighting, but I think it's interesting. Like it's just crazy to me how a guy who just jabs and teeps and like um stops himself from getting taken down. Basically, like that's 90% of what he does, and he's the champ. He beat like one of the best in the world, Adesanya, like one of the best middleweights of all time. Granted, like Adesanya was on a bit like on a decline then, but still, he beat him kind of at the start of that decline. Um, and became champ, and now again he beat Hamzat, who was like the most fucking dominant like middleweight champ for like ages, who like fucking just ragdolled everyone else. He beat him too to become champ again. I can hardly fucking believe it. What did he do it with? Basically, he just jabbed. He said his shoulder was fucked. He fucked up his shoulder before the fight. He couldn't even throw his right hand like as much as he wanted. Um, he threw a bunch of different stuff, but mainly just jab. And he's really fucking good with that jab. I reckon his jab is probably like a lot of people's crosses because he's so fucking good with it. Um, but that's not all he can do, and like we saw that the other day because look at his defensive wrestling. He got Hamza to pull guard twice. He got taken down a bunch of times, but Hamza wasn't able to do anything with those takedowns. He wasn't able to hold him down very much, and he wasn't able to get any damage or anything. And Sean was never in serious danger of getting submitted or anything. It is worth pointing out that a big factor was Hamza's brutal weight cut. Supposedly, he cut like 21 kilos of water or something like that. That seems like an absolutely insane number. So I'm not sure if that's like, that doesn't seem like that can be accurate. But anyway, I did hear that, and it was a fucking brutal weight cut. But weight cutting, unfortunately, is part of the sport. Like many people think there should be a way of getting rid of it because it's a fucked up thing. I kind of agree, but currently that is a strategic part of the sport. So if you were too big, you were too fat, and when he when he weighed in, he didn't look shredded. He didn't look like low body fat. He looked kind of smooth. So if you're too big, you're too fat, and then you have to cut shitloads of water, that's a strategic error on your part. So that's a part of fighting. So the fact that Strickland was fine with his cut and everything, and Hamzat had a brutal cut, and that is largely like a large part of what played into him not having much energy and not being able to shoot and wrestle and dominate like he usually does. That's a strategic error on his part, and that is still part of the fight. That's not an excuse. He was, I believe, bulking up to go to 205, but then he booked this fight and he had to go back down or something like that. But still, yeah, it's a strategic error. It's part of fighting, like being the right weight and all that. That's a part of that game. So, um, yeah, it's still credit to Sean. Uh, yeah, that Hamzat, had to go through that and Sean didn't, and so on and so on. But yeah, a pretty good fight, and split decision is such a Sean Strickland way to win the championship. He's had so many split decisions, and um, as good as his jab and his teep, which he didn't really even use his teep because he didn't want to get taken down this time. As good as that is, I think he would be even better if he just mixed in a little bit of more of a variety of different shots and more power shots. Just a bit. Just a bit, because he's had a lot of decisions. He's had a lot of split decisions, and he's lost some split decisions. He's been on the bad end of a few split decisions and stuff. Where especially where he kind of outstruck the other person, but the way the scoring works, if you're just jabbing someone's head off and doing cumulative damage, the optics don't always look as good as, someone landing fewer shots, not doing as well. They could even be blocked shots or partial shots or something. But those big shots, the optics are better. So if you're going to decisions, sometimes that doesn't work in your favor. Like his style is not the best for the judging for MMA, really. And I don't know why he chooses to fight like that, because he can do a lot of other stuff. It's not like all he knows how to do is jab. It is really weird. Maybe it's because his knee's fucked from his motorbike accidents and stuff. I don't know, but yeah, it was a pretty good fight, and I couldn't believe it. I thought he was gonna get mauled. I thought he was gonna get just absolutely ragdolled. I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if he wins, but I know he's not going to. Hamzat's just gonna fucking maul him, roll over him, and it's gonna be sad, but that's what's gonna happen. But he did it. I couldn't believe it. Um, and yeah, that weight cut was obviously a big factor, I reckon. But yeah, he did it. I'm so happy. I'm so happy for him. It's so funny that this kind of like white trash, like out of pocket trash talker, jab and teep guy, that's the guy who's the middleweight champ. Again, so fucking crazy. Like, it just like seems really surreal and weird. That's not who you would expect, is it? But yeah, he showed, he has good ground game. He has good defensive wrestling. It's not just jab and teep. That's not everything he can do. He can do more shit. He just doesn't always put it on display. And it was interesting how they were like all friendly and respectful after the fight. Everyone thought it was like a real beef. Sean said it was just to sell the fight. After the fight, he said, "No, they were never on bad terms. It was just to sell the fight." That is kind of weird because they both seemed legitimately emotional. But maybe it wasn't really super personal. It was just like, you know, pre-fight nerves, like pre-fight adrenaline, that kind of stuff. And Sean said it was just to sell the fight. But another time he said, well, one thing he doesn't like is Hamzat is kind of threatening and has a threatening demeanor. And that's one thing he doesn't like. But yeah, whether there was any real beef or not, it seems like there wasn't. But yeah, it seems like they were just friendly and respectful at the end. So that's pretty cool. It is a little bit confusing because I thought it was a real beef, but that's good. I really like I like funny trash talk, like Connor's hilarious lines back in the day, and like Chael Sonnen's funny lines, and like Sean's like funny rants and stuff. But I'm not a big trash talk guy. I just want to see the fights. I prefer like sportsmanship and stuff. Like beef and stuff doesn't really do it for me. But yeah. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to say about that. That was a good fight. The there was some other good fights, but I'll be honest, I didn't pay that much attention to them. I just wanted to see the main fight. So yeah, that's a bit about that. So now I wanted to tell you some more shitty fucking stories about my gay fucked up childhood. Um, I was talking about how my dad had anger problems and he would always like shout and stuff and like go off his rocker and get all angry. But I wanted to mention he didn't just do that. Like he would get right up in your face. Like imagine you're a little kid, you're 5, 6, 7 years old, and this guy, this fully grown man, like he gets right up in your face and he's got these like crazy wide eyes and he's like, "What are you doing? Why'd you do that? Huh? What's your game? Hey? What are you playing at?" Like all this type of stuff, like really like threatening and like aggressively like shouting and threatening right in your face with his like wide, crazy eyes that he has. And you're like, fuck, I'm like pissing myself. What the fuck is gonna happen? This is like this guy who's supposed to be like protecting you and like providing for you and stuff. It looks like he's gonna fucking kill you. Um, and to be fair, he never really like hit anyone or was physically abusive. Like you got to give him that. What I feel like what we went through was mainly uh I guess I would say verbal abuse and emotional abuse. I think it counts as those things, but yeah, not really physical. Um, but he would say stuff like he had this phrase. He would always say, "I'll beat the daylights out of you," and he'd do this thing where he'd like widen his eyes and kind of like shake his head and be like, "I'll beat the daylights out of you. I'll beat the daylights out of you, kid. You got no idea." Like he'd say stuff like that. It's like a psycho saying, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." Like that's what it's like. And I always thought, like, I was always afraid one day he was going to do it. Um, but he didn't actually. But he still said that and that kind of stuff on a regular basis. So it's pretty fucked up. And I'll tell you one story where it wasn't physical abuse, but it was like one particularly fucked up blow up that really stuck in my mind. So I have a younger sister, and I can't remember exactly how old we were, but I'm a few years older than her, like, and she was quite little. Um, how old would she have been? I can't remember how old, but like definitely less than like 9 or 10, probably like between 5 and 7 or maybe 8. I'm not really sure. A kid, somewhere around there. I can't remember what the argument and the shouting was about, but he was like shouting and carrying on about something to do with her, my little sister, and she was like crying and stuff. And I think at some point my mum thought that he actually hit her. He didn't, but my mum thought or suspected that he did. And she was like, "Oh my God, what have you done? What's happening?" Like all this type of stuff. And it was like a big ruckus, kind of like in our hallway and in like one of our bedrooms. And I was standing there like with my little sister, and she was like crying and like fucking tears and snot dribbling out of her face, just a mess, because she was being like shouted at and like verbally abused and all this shit. And then my mum comes down to be like, "What's going on?" Because like she thought that my dad actually hit her, which he didn't. But my dad got really angry and he kind of grabbed my sister's shoulders from behind and kind of grabbed her and kind of shook her a bit. And he was like, "I didn't hit you. Tell her that I didn't hit you." And she was just like screaming and crying. And suddenly blood just started spurting out of her nose. And he hadn't hit her or anything. He just grabbed her shoulders and kind of shook her. But it seems just like the extreme stress of the situation just made her nose just fucking explode with blood. And blood just started spurting out of her nose and like dribbling out of her nose. And my mum was like, "Oh my God," and all this stuff. And I can't really remember what happened after that. Maybe that shocked everyone and like was enough to calm him down. I don't know. But that's just such a vivid memory for me. And in this instance and in lots of others, like I just so badly wanted to protect my little sister. But I was just a kid or, later on like an adolescent too. And like there was only so much I could do. Um and for myself, but especially because of my little sister, like I used to have fantasies about killing my dad. And I think I'd really vividly think about like all the different ways I would do it and like how I'd plan it and how it would happen and like how good it'd be. And that's pretty fucked up to admit. And there's only so much like I've told you so far and so much detail I've been into so far, but he really did make our lives hell. Like he really did make growing up like hell. And yes, other people have it worse. Physical abuse, sexual abuse. We didn't have that, but it doesn't mean our shit wasn't real. Like I've just described. And yeah, I just had this wish, like, I wish I could take my little sister away from this, you know? But I couldn't. I just like felt so powerless. And yeah. And me and my little sister were good friends for a long time. Like, even being adults and stuff, we're still good friends. But yeah, we're not really close anymore. I think she just wants to do her own thing. Like she doesn't really want to really even like see our family much. She just wants to do her own thing. Which is sad for me because we were really good mates. And she says I was a hero growing up, but I don't think she thinks that anymore. I think she thinks I'm just lame, but what can you do? But yeah, you know, stuff like that would happen like fairly regularly. Like that's a really bad one that sticks in my mind, but these big like arguments and blow ups that happen all the time. And even when they weren't happening, you'd think like, when's the next one gonna happen? When's the next fucked up episode gonna be? Or just what fucked up shit is my dad gonna say? And my mom too, to a lesser extent. What fucked up religious stuff are they gonna come up with next that they're gonna jam down our throats or whatever? Yeah. So yeah. And my dad had this thing of like complaining about how hard he had to work and like providing for us and stuff. Um and he'd be like, I've been slaving over a hot computer. All day I've been slaving over a hot computer and like telling us how we were like ungrateful and stuff. And I was really into Milo. If you know the drink Milo, it's like a kind of chocolatey milk drink. And he'd be like, who's going to keep you in Milo, huh? Who's going to buy all your Milo? And like, he would always make us feel guilty about like, he'd kind of shame us for like eating or like, yeah, like he'd be like, always say I had too much Milo. I ate too much cheese. Like, he would kind of shame us for eating because, he had to work and it cost money. And I actually had an eating disorder later when I was a young adult, which I'll tell you about another time. But that may have been a factor of that because he was always shaming us about food and eating and consuming. But yeah, I was like, I've actually been to your office. Like, I visited your office when you work. And it's like, I'm pretty sure it's really nicely air conditioned. Like, how hot does your computer get? Because I've like seen your desk and everything, and it's really nice. The people you work with seem pretty chill. It's like a nice place. and it has fucking air conditioning, whereas our house didn't have air conditioning when I was growing up. So that seemed like a somewhat dubious claim to me that you've been slaving over a hot computer. I would say you've been working on a computer for 8 hours in an air conditioned office. Um, sure, I'm sure it's like stressful and stuff. You'd rather go to the beach or whatever, but come on, at least be accurate about what you've been doing. Um, but yeah. So yeah, there'd be fights all the time about just the stupidest stuff. The big one is like the dishes and that we didn't do the dishes enough. I would have been fine to just we should just make a schedule, like, you do them this day, I'll do them this day, my sister will do them this day, my other sister will do another day. Like, just be sane about it and come up with like a schedule and we'll follow it. It'll be fine. Like, why do we have to argue? Why do there have to be these big blow ups and arguments and all this fucking shouting and carrying on? Because it's not really about the dishes. It's about him hating his life and regretting his life choices and shit. Because he went traveling. Like, he would call himself a traveler because I think it was from about 20 to 25. He traveled around, and this was like quite a bit in the past. So, the world is probably different then. Like, it was probably kind of cooler traveling around. I don't know when it was, 60s, 70s, I don't really know. So, for about 5 years, he traveled all around. He went around like Europe and he went to Africa and all this shit. And it was like this big adventure. But then he came back and he got married and he had kids and stuff. And it was kind of like the adventure was over. And he kind of wished it wasn't. And he probably kind of regretted his life choices. And I get the whole thing about regretting your life choices. Like, I can 1,000% relate to that. But that doesn't give you license to be like mean and abusive and like nasty and crazy to little kids who you're supposed to be taking care of. And he was kind of mean to my mom too. Um, he wasn't all bad. Like, there's way worse people I know because I've met them and interacted with them. But I'm just trying to get across to you what it was like for me growing up. That's all. I'm not trying to trash my dad or any specific person. I'm just trying to relate to you, what I went through, what I experienced, and how I felt and my thoughts and feelings about it. So, but yeah, that's what happens, to guys, to men. Their life is kind of like, adventurous and shit. But then at a certain point, they meet some girl and they like the girl. They don't want to lose the girl. So they're like, get married or, kind of commit to the girl or whatever. But then they lose that freedom and the kind of like adventure of their life because they're more tied down, they have more responsibilities and shit. Uh, and then the girl wants kids because that's what girls are like biologically. They have those drives and shit. The guy or the man, he doesn't really want kids. He wants to keep on fucking the girl, and he knows he's getting older and like it's going to get harder maybe to find girls to fuck. So he wants to keep fucking the girl. He's addicted to the pussy. But also, he's like, he's not just a fucking troll. Like, he likes the girl, he likes the companionship. They've kind of bonded by this point and he doesn't want to like tear that apart. So he gets married or he like commits to her or whatever, and he has kids even though he doesn't really want that. He mainly wants the girl. But then the kids come and they get between him and the girl anyway. They take up time and attention, resources, and he kind of wishes it was just him and the girl. But, to keep the girl, he had to have the kids. So then he's kind of stuck with them. And he wishes he wasn't. He wishes he could have the best of both worlds and have freedom and have his life be like this cool, free adventure. But he wishes he could have the pussy and the companionship of the girl too. But he doesn't really want the kids and everything that comes with them. And them getting in the way of him and the girl, and like now she's tired, she doesn't want to fuck him anyway. And there's all this money stuff and stress, and the sex and the companionship kind of start to dry up or diminish at least anyway. So he doesn't really end up with anything that he wants, and he just fucking hates his life and regrets his life choices. I could be wrong, or I could be, not entirely on the money, but I feel like largely that's what happened to my dad. And I think this happens to a lot of men, way more than will admit it. Everyone has to say that they love their kids and all that. But I feel that's what happened to him, and I feel that's what happens to a lot of people, a lot of dudes. And I feel like I really felt that as a kid. Like, he didn't really want me around. Like, that's the sense I got. Like, he wasn't stoked to have me around. Definitely not all the time. He wasn't all bad, but yeah, I didn't really feel like loved and valued a lot of the time. So, boo hoo, right? Poor me. Poor fucking. This is another thing he used to say. Poor little white kids. No, spoiled little white kids. That's what it was. That was part of him shaming us. Anytime, like anything, we would think anything was wrong, he'd be like, spoiled little white kids. I've been to Bombay. I've been to Africa. I've eaten rice with sand in it, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out in his later years, he's become like a fussy eater. And my mum will be make him something. He's like, oh, I don't like that. That's too rich. And I'm sure she wants to say, hey, what about Bombay? What about the rice with the fucking sand in it? I thought you'd eat anything. But anyway, enough talking shit. Yeah, that's some more stuff about me and my kind of shitty childhood. Eventually I'll say some good stuff too. I'll say some positive stuff. This show isn't going to be entirely just like fucking complaining and negative stuff, but I just want to tell you a bit about some of my formative experiences and stuff I've been through. Get some of this shit off my chest. So, yeah, wanted to tell these stories and stuff. So, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. Hope you maybe got something out of it. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.